So you're wanting to see Lakey Peak, but you can hardly find any information on the internet or on YouTube to tell you about what it's like. I've been there twice in the last year, and I faced the exact same problem when I first went. I couldn't find any information about it. So I thought I'd make a video talking about everything I now know about Lakey Peak so you don't get caught up in stupid shit you don't have to worry about. Keep in mind that things change quickly over there, and I can't guarantee that things won't be different when you go, but this is how it was for me. Travel-wise, both times that I went, I've gone from a plane flight from Bali to Beamer. You can take a scooter there, but you need to catch ferries to get to Sumbawa, and then you have to do a really long scooter ride from the west side all the way to the more eastern side, which is where Lakey Peak's at. I've heard that the taxi ride from West Sumbawa to Lakey can take up to 10 hours, so I can imagine if you're on a scooter with boards on the side, it'll be a big ordeal. People do it, but that's why I've just chosen to go to the plane both times. So there's only one main airline that takes you from Bali to Beamer. Beamer is the main airport in Sumbawa, which you fly to if you're trying to go to Lakey. It's Lion Air or Wings Abadi, Wings Air. The flight one way, I think it was like 1.5 million rupiah. And something that's changed recently is the price of surfboards on the plane though. It used to be 200,000 rupiah, so about 20 Australian dollars per surfboard. But now, as of the start of August 2023, it's 500,000 Indonesian rupiah per board. So 50 Australian bucks per surfboard you bring per flight. It's a lot of money for boards. So a little hack on that is if you're bringing a few boards, you might consider lying about how many you have in your bag. From what I know, there's no penalty if they found out that you have an extra one when you said you had two. It could save you 50 bucks. The plane ride from Bali is like an hour and a half. The planes are pretty small and tight, but gets you over there and it's a quick flight. The one I've taken both times was like a 3:15 p.m. flight, I think, from Bali to Beamer. Once you land at Beamer Airport, it's very easy to get a taxi to Lakey Peak. There's hustlers everywhere and they know Lakey Peak and they know that surfers are always going there. But the price that you want is no more than 1 million rupiah for a taxi. That's just how it is. It's like a 2.5 hour drive from the airport. So that's the way it is. Don't expect to be able to haggle down to like a 500,000 taxi or less or anything like that. You might be able to get like 700 or 800,000, but really 1 million is fine. It's what everyone pays to get a taxi from Beamer to Lakey. If you're traveling as a pair of two or alone, then it'd be a good idea to try and find people who are going to Lakey on the plane or when you get off, because then you can do a shared taxi ride and pay, say it's 4 of you, then you can then just pay 250,000 each. So the entire taxi will be 1 million, but you can split that cost with the people who are riding in it. Be ready for a bit of hustle and bustle. People will be willing to like run and grab your boards for you and then throw them on the car and then say, oh, that's 200,000 for me doing that for you. So, it's that usual hustle, but I mean, a lot of these people don't have a lot of money, and if someone's going to put boards on the roof really quickly for you and they ask for 10 bucks, may as well be a good person. Maybe just give them some cash. Yeah, from there you've got like a 2.5 hour ride. Sometimes there's road closures and it might take a bit longer. You will notice that the drivers are pretty gnarly with it. They drive pretty crazy, but they'll get you to Lakey as quick as they can. And yeah, that's about it on the way there. For traveling back on the plane, the main flight to go from Lakey straight to Bali, there's only one main option if I remember right, and that's a 7 a.m. flight. The other flights make you have like a 1 hour layover in Lombok just to go back to Bali, which is only like an hour and a half flight. So it's normal to be getting that 7 a.m. flight from Beamer. Pretty much everyone does it if they're flying. With that though, because you have like a 2.5 hour drive before you get to the airport, you need to get up really early and leave really early. It's common, so it's easy to talk to locals and arrange a taxi at that time. Wherever you're staying, you might have someone there that you can talk to and they can get a taxi driver to come. I also think the airport doesn't even open really till like 6. So don't worry about getting there really early. At least an hour before your flight's probably just the smart thing to do, but maybe hour and a half before boarding is a good place. So getting there from somewhere like between 5:30 and 6 would be a good idea. So that means probably leaving Lakey. It's early, so the traffic won't be as bad, but probably getting in a taxi at 3:30 to 4 is a really nice and safe bet, but you could probably push that a little bit, maybe to 4:30, but I think 4 o'clock's a good time to leave. This could be subject to change if there's road closures, etc. So make sure you talk to locals before just deciding that 4:30 is a good time. You don't want to muck that up and miss your flight. And then on the way back, it's no different. You're gonna have to pay that 500,000 rupiah per surfboard, but the airport is simple, not much going on. It's very easy to know where you got to go, how to get onto your flight. Just got to wear that cost and maybe one less board than you do if you're going to try and save a bit on cost. So the travel option definitely has a few steps to it, but luckily accommodation is really simple over there and really cheap. I've stayed at Lakey Beach Inn twice. It was costing us like 150,000 rupee each a night. So that's like 15 Australian dollars a night. Super cheap and really good location. Straight in from Lakey Peak, which we'll talk about in a bit. But really close to the shore. You literally walk like 1 minute and you can check the waves. Or like literally just walk out the front, you can see the peak. You're also next to Fatma's, a good restaurant, probably the nicest place there to eat. Lakey Beach Inn, I would say it's very simple. A lot of the accommodation would be simple over there, but Lakey Beach Inn is definitely simple. You have like a bed, small room, and things break and power goes off, and it's a place that costs 15 a night for a reason, but I haven't had any bad experience there. If you meet a guy called Fandy, he's a great bloke, often is the one that's taking care of Lakey Beach Inn, a young guy, and he's a great surfer as well and a really nice guy. The actual owner of Lakey Beach Inn is this French guy who is an alcoholic, and if you go to the reviews of Lakey Beach Inn, you'll see that the good ones are usually when the French guy's not there, and all the bad ones involve the French guy. So keep that in mind. I've been lucky that the owner has only been there for like 2 nights on my first trip, and that was it. I haven't seen him other than that. But from what I gather, he's a loose cannon, and that's probably where the negativity comes for Lakey Beach Inn, because I think the rest or everything else is great about it. Just keep in mind there may be a crazy drunk guy, or he may be chill, who knows, but that's the roll of the dice of this place. But I've had a good experience there, so keep that in mind. But overall accommodation, word of mouth, there's a few places that it seems just go through WhatsApp and they might be really cheap, but you can go through booking.com and see a lot of places through that. Also, if you search it up online, or some have Facebook accounts, you can search up Lakey Beach Homestay and probably find a lot of things. There's nicer places which will run you more, like I know Lucky Lakey straight out the front is probably the nicest spot you can be at Lakey. It's like right on the front, nice accommodation, looking out at the peak. But you know, there's options for if you're going solo, 2 of you, bigger group. Accommodation isn't hard to sort out. Plenty of good options and cheap in different areas as well. You don't have to be directly at Lakey Peak. You can be down the Nungas Road. There's a lot of homestays there. So yeah, accommodation, I wouldn't be too worried about it. Book something and check reviews, but it's cheap overall. And everything's close to the waves as well. So food over there is really good. The main thing is it's really cheap. So depending where you go, you're looking at the cheapest, a nasi goreng being, or mee goreng being like 20,000. And then on the expensive side, a nasi mee goreng being like 50,000 Indonesian rupiah. So like between 2 to 5 Australian dollars. My favorite spot, if I had to choose one to always go to, would probably be Compass, Warung. Compass is a tiny scooter ride away. It's on the main road, but more towards the Nungas side, which I'll talk about these areas and these names like Nungas a bit later. It has really cheap food. So it has a mee goreng nasi goreng for 30,000, and it's good portions, good food, and it has a good pool table. Well, pool tables aren't good, but like it has fun pool table and a good kind of hangout area. Some spots also do smoothie bowls, and Compass does 60,000 rupiah smoothie bowls. So $6 Australian. They're really good and cheap. So other places that are really good is Mamat's Warung. That one's the cheapest out of everywhere that's nearby. Mamat's does 25,000 rupiah mee goreng nasi goreng. Really has some of the best food and some of the cheapest. Even does sashimi for 25,000. I remember some people got sick from it, I think, like 2 trips ago, but it's really good. If you try and go as cheap as you can, I'd highly recommend going to Mamat's all the time. Fatma's is probably the nicest spot, the most expensive as well, but you can be watching the peak and Lakey Peak from that area. And it's definitely the nicest kind of restaurant and hangout area. Really good free Wi-Fi, a bit of a like couch bit to sit on. Fatma's was probably my second favorite just because of how nice it was. Other spots which are good, all of them, Shipwreck's great. It's on the beach as well. Balumba, the surf cafe. Tutu's Warung down towards Nungas is really cheap. I think that's all the main ones. I think there's also 3 Waves. It's another spot. But overall, food costs are really low. Compass and Fatma's are the only 2 to my knowledge that you can pay with a card at. So keep that in mind. Places that have pool tables are Compass and Shipwreck. So the big attraction is the waves. There's like 5 or 6 main waves in the area. So you've got Nungadoros, Cobblestones, Lakey Peak, Lakey Peak, Nungas, and Periscopes. Main attraction is Lakey Peak. Lakey Peak pretty much works on any swell, any tide, any wind. You can go out there and you can surf it any direction as well. If you don't know where to check, you may as well just look at the peak every morning to see. But the best conditions for Lakey are, more swell is good. As it becomes more swell, its barrels, it gets bigger, cleaner. The A-frame really comes out with a bit more swell as well, and it really starts to TP up and kind of have that perfect takeoff, which it's kind of so well known for. So you want more swell, and if you're looking to get barreled, go out there on a lower tide. High tide, the current starts to get a bit wild. It's nothing ridiculous, but the current does drag pretty hard, especially on high tide. But yeah, the Peak is definitely by far my favorite wave there, and it's the best wave there probably as well. Be ready for a decent paddle out. The Peak is out a bit. On lower tide, you can walk quite a lot. If you're on high tide, you got to paddle for a while to get out there. You can get a boat if you want out, but like, you might as well paddle. It's really not that far. Right next door to Lakey Peak, south, just across that channel, is Lakey Pipe. Lakey Pipe is like a slabby left, which barrels. It can work on really low swell, and it can also work on quite a bit of swell. I've only surfed it one time, and I was surfing it on a dropping tide, and it was getting too low, and it got pretty hairy and just like mutant kind of slabs. So you definitely want to surf, if you're going to surf the Pipe, it's a mid to high tide wave, and I think you just have to check it, and it might be working, it might not be. I remember the first trip, there'd be days where the Peak was pumping and the Pipe just wasn't working. And then this last trip as well, there'd been days where Peak was like tiny and not really doing as okay, but then the Pipe was actually a lot more fun. So it definitely works on the smaller swell, but I think it can hold a bit of swell too. On its day, the Pipe is just like a very easy roll into perfect little left barrel. On different conditions, like I think if you get it on the when the tide's too low, you're probably looking at some pretty mutant slabs. So, but remember, mid to high tide is the play for Lakey Pipe. So again, a bit further south, a small scooter ride away, you've got cobblestones. To find cobblestones, head south down the main road, and after about 5 minutes, be looking out for a small sign on the right side of the road that says cobblestones, and it's like a rocky track. So go slow on your scooter and kind of bit of off-roading. Cobblestones right and cobblestones left at either side of the bay. All of cobblestones, you need a mid to high tide. Don't bother checking it on low tide. It's just out of the water. Can't really surf it at all. I've surfed the right once and it was pretty fun and like wedgy, but the main thing for cobblestones is this is where you want to check when the swell's low. If you see the Peak's firing, it's going to be too big for cobblestones. But on small days at the Peak, cobblestones is a great place to check. Go there, small swell, high tide. You can get some really fun waves. The left wraps around like a little point break going along the rocks, and then the right is at the other side of the bay. The left is a more down the line, fast wave that can barrel, and then the right has kind of cups and bowls on it, which can be really fun as well. I've had a couple really fun surfs out on the left. So the left is probably a better wave on its day. So probably another 10 minutes down the main road is a spot called Nungadoras. This is a wave that is kind of kept more quiet. I've only surfed there once and it wasn't really the day for it. It was onshore, small swell, and pretty weird, but there was no one out. This is a spot where I would say be smart about respecting locals if there's locals out, because it's definitely kept quieter than other places. I've heard that on its day it can really crank, but it's similar to cobblestones where you want small swell and high tide. Because this is further down the coast, it's more exposed to the swell. So that's why, like cobblestones as well, that's why they both prefer small swell. Yeah, you kind of just have to sniff your way out to find Nungadoras, maybe go on Google Maps and try and see where it is. The right turn is just after a bridge, but there's a couple, so hop on Google Maps if you're trying to find it. And you'll probably be able to find this little dirt road that goes off the main road. If you're feeling like exploring on a small day, might be worth having a look to try and find it, see if you can get some empty waves. Heading back up the coast, just north of Lakey Peak, is a left point called Nungas. Now, I haven't surfed Nungas before. Nungas needs more swell to work. Yeah, Nungas needs a lot more swell to work. It becomes this big left point that kind of comes down where the reef wraps back around, kind of wraps back down into the bay. I've seen videos of it cranking, but it needs more swell. So you'd be lucky to end up being able to surf this if you went during the wet season. During the dry season, if there's a day where the peak's pretty big and you'll want to surf somewhere else, you could have a look at Nungas. To get there, it's really simple. There's this like fruit shop just in line with Compass. Off the main road, only like 2 minutes down from Lakey Peak, 2-lane road with an arch. Take a left down there. It's a nice road with a couple little speed bumps and lots of homestays around. Go to the end of the road. You buy this big open beach, not far away from the peak at all, just a little bit north. And Nungas will be at this big left point that's hopefully thundering down. I'm not exactly sure what tides it needs. I think maybe a higher tide, but not too sure about that either. So probably the second best wave in the whole area, a really well-known wave, perfect right point, periscopes. Periscopes needs a little bit more swell than the peak to start working. Probably when the peak gets to like 2 to 3 feet, will periscopes actually start breaking, and it needs the mid to high tide. Periscopes is the only wave as well that is a bit more turned around. All the other waves pretty much face directly west. Periscopes faces more southwest. So what that means is a northerly wind where that's more onshore at Lakey Peak. Periscopes, that's more offshore, which is a good thing. But also in the dry season, if you're getting southerly wind, it's going to blow straight into periscopes, which isn't good. But yeah, mid to high tide, more swell. Periscopes is a sick spot. Had lots of surfs there on my first trip. It was cranking, so fun. A long right-hander, perfect. Lots of amazing sections. It can barrel when it's bigger. Can get a bit crowded, but it's a sick spot. That's my second favorite wave for sure, just behind Lakey Peak. To get there, you want to drive north, go on a scooter. It's about a 5-minute scooter ride on the main road. You go over that big bridge going north, and just a bit after, when you start to get towards some small huts, there's a left-hand turn down like a gravel road. Take that left-hand turn and you go down this track for probably 10 minutes. Follow it all the way until you get to a little gate. You take a little left turn when you get near this gate and you'll be at periscopes. Keep in mind that periscopes, as well as actually cobblestones, often locals there are charging a 10,000 rupee parking fee, so maybe bring a little bit of cash on you as well when you go. So one thing I hadn't mentioned yet about the waves is seasons. In the dry season, you get more swell, so periscopes is more likely to have swell, so it's working. You're less likely to surf somewhere like cobblestones or Nangadoros. It's more like peak, pipe, nungas, periscopes. But the way the wind swings, I believe, in dry season is it goes south as it comes onshore, instead of in the wet season when it comes around from the north. So late season or the dry, I think the best time to get periscopes, I would imagine, is on the end of the dry season, probably, because you're probably hoping for northerly wind to start coming in, so then you can get offshore periscopes in like the afternoon when there's swell still, but not too sure about that. But yeah, to keep in mind, if you're looking for bigger days, like the rest of Indonesia really, dry season, it'll be bigger swell. Wet season's still really fun. I've gone on the ends of wet season both times, and the first time we got some really good swell. Second time was a bit smaller, but there's always going to be waves. It just depends if you want to get like 6 to 8 foot Lakey Peak as much as possible, or you're happy with slightly smaller crowds and smaller waves in the wet season instead. So yeah, with crowds in these spots and all of Lakey Peak, the dry season is going to be busier. I think April would probably be the most busy, and then in the wet season it should be quieter, but that's at the cost of the waves. For non-surfing activities, there are waterfalls nearby. I haven't been to them, but I knew a lot of people that went and found them. You should probably just ask some locals about where it's at. If you've hired a scooter, it won't be far away. You can go fishing. Highly recommend this bloke, Jack Lakey, local, who does fishing, can take you to a couple secret surf spots as well. And for a pretty good price, take you out in his boat, spend a few hours trolling, going off the bottom, jigging, whatever you want to do, have a fish. Exploring, you've got this big open road. If you've hired a scooter, which I'll talk about just after this, you've got, a wide open road to check out. There's a few local villages nearby. But exploring wise, waterfall, checking around the beaches around there, that's kind of about it. Don't expect to be going and doing all these things that are kind of like Bali if you go to Lakey Peak. Like, you got the surfing, you're in a fishing village. There's a few things around it, but pretty much there to kind of be there. So expect to be looking for waves more than other things to do. Something I hadn't talked about yet is scooter hire. At Lakey Beach Inn, where I've stayed, they've had blokes ready for us straight away to negotiate scooters. If you just ask around, you'll easily find someone who's going to do a scooter hire for you. Pretty much every place will have board racks on the side as well, so that's easy. Be ready for them to start at a price that's too expensive. The first trip we got scooters for 40,000 rupiah a day, so $4 a day, which is a good price. I think it might be a bit harder to get that kind of price now, but if they come out, saying 150,000 rupiah a day, know that you can get way cheaper. Last trip we had, I think we got them for like 60,000 a day after a bit of haggling. So just keep that in mind. The prices aren't some firm thing. These guys are just trying to make a bit extra money, but a reasonable price is probably somewhere between 50 and 70,000 rupiah a day for scooters. But at the end of the day, if some guy's saying 80,000, you just want to have it locked in, might as well just do that. Fuel for these is really cheap as well. Just on the main road, you'll see these green plastic bottles. with places, and that's petrol. You can go there. A 1 litre bottle should just be 20,000 rupiah, so just literally $2 to fill up like half your tank on your scooter. So cost overall, I can't really give you a perfect number because it depends how you want to do your trip, how much you want to spend on food, how much you want to spend on accommodation, and how long you want to be there for. But overall, it should be a cheap holiday. Consider the fact that you are going to have to pay a bit for your boards, 500,000 rupiah per surfboard. Food's cheap, scooters are cheap, accommodation's cheap. It shouldn't be an expensive trip. It's somewhere you can go and go cheap and stay there for a long time if you want to. I know a lot of people go there for like 3 months. My trips have both only been 2 weeks and 1 week, but hopefully in the future I can do like a month there. I can see it being somewhere that I could do remote work at the same time because of good Wi-Fi, nice restaurants, but good prices as well, and good waves. Overall, I love Lakey Peak. I think the person that suits the most is someone who wants to go pretty much purely for surfing. If you want a holiday that's more Bali style, like going exploring different things, eating lots of different food at lots of different cafes and doing activities that aren't just surfing, probably go somewhere more like Kuta Lombok, Uluwatu or Canggu for that kind of holiday. This is a more hardcore surfing place just because there's not much else to do. Doesn't mean the waves are heavy necessarily. The waves are amazing and friendly and beginner friendly. Depending where you go, there's just less to do that's away from surfing. So be ready to just be kind of there checking the waves, and when there's not much swell, maybe you're not doing too much, which isn't a bad thing at all. It's just worth considering. I love Lakey Peak. People are so nice there. I can't wait to go back, and I can see myself going for like a month and maybe staying at Lakey Beach again or trying somewhere else. Yeah, any more questions, put them down below. But I think that's about everything I know about Lakey Peak. Thank you so much for watching the video. My name's Sam. I'm hoping to do more videos like this about information. I'll do one on Lombok as well and try and give you guys the best tips I can about doing an Indo surf trip or traveling. See you in the next one.